One thing I've been thinking about a lot recently when it comes to Christian theology and doing theology is that truth is that which coheres to reality. So, for example, something is not true because you've convinced all the people that you're talking to about whatever particular topic it may be of the reality of what you're saying. What is true because it's something that corresponds to reality and coheres to making sense of the various disciplines in life. So, for example, if I'm trying to argue for the reality of the Trinity to somebody, it's not going to be my ability to convince the other person of what I'm saying is true that makes it true. And I know that's obvious, but sometimes I think we forget that very basic but very important point. That something is true because it coheres, again, in every discipline to reality. So if we're looking at, a particular Christian concept, it's going to be how do we make sense of this philosophically, theologically? How does this align with the other disciplines? What's the epistemology that we use to come to that knowledge, that understanding? And it's when all of these things align, that's when we know that something is real or that we can hold that belief with veracity. Now, me coming from a more high church tradition, an Anglican Catholic tradition, sometimes I find when I'm trying to defend a particular doctrine or stand up for something, I just have to recognize I'm not going to be able to convince everybody just off the cusp of what I'm saying. But that doesn't mean that its veracity depends upon me being able to convince them. It depends upon the reality of how does this align with historically? How does it align theologically? How does it make sense of the narrative of Scripture? What is the wide breadth of Christendom said over millennia about this topic? And how can I hold this with conviction, but also with humility? But I just think that kind of that game of trying to, it's not really a game, but that project of trying to understand how does this align with every discipline of reality? Just that question up front is very important. And also to recognize that we can hold things with conviction, even if those around us, if we find it challenging to convince them. So I know that doesn't resolve anything completely, but I think that's an important notion that we can ponder on when doing theology. So hope that helps. God bless.